Hello, welcome to this Lighthouse Read Think Act video, where the writer of The Naked Don't Fear the Water, Matthieu Aikins, answers a few questions that I put to him. The book is incredible. It's about Mathieu and Omar's travels from Afghanistan to Europe, seeking refuge. They encounter many obstacles, from smuggling to finding the safest route, to borders, to camps, but they also encounter incredible, wonderful people. It's a true story, and I think it's really important that it's shared and everyone reads it. So hope you enjoy the next few minutes, and buy and read the book.
Well, a refugee is someone forced to flee their home. According to the 1951 Geneva Convention, which is the foundation of international law on refugees, or someone who can't go home because they have a well-founded fear of being persecuted for their nationality, their religion, their race, their membership in a particular social group, or their political views. And one of the things that I learned while writing my book is that this is very much a product of Cold War politics. So the US and its allies pushed for a narrow definition of refugees that could be applied to communist dissidents. I mean, even though this was written in the aftermath of World War II, it doesn't protect people who are just fleeing war, and certainly not people who are fleeing an ecological disaster or climate change. And that's very much what we see today in the selective treatment of different refugees from different countries at Europe's borders and elsewhere. Another thing about refugees is they can't be sent back to their own country. It's called the principle of non-refoulement. And for this reason, people don't want refugees. States don't want refugees, I should say. Many of the visa laws and immigration laws that exist are intended to keep out asylum seekers. Afghans, for example, have the worst passport in the world when it comes to visa-free travel. And this is deliberate because no state wants migrants that it can't deport. Well, I don't think that it's possible to have a humane migration system in Europe. I think that the borders that currently exist depend very much on their inhumanity, on their violence. We live in a world that is so starkly divided between wealth and poverty, and where people face such atrocious violence and disaster that's only growing worse with climate change, that it's necessary to have violent borders to deter desperate people from trying to come to Europe. So given the current system we have in global inequality, I don't think we can have what is called a humane migration system. And I think that the idea of having one distracts us from the very deep structural problems that underlie global migration and the refugee crisis. Now, that being said, I don't think we have to participate in making those borders more inhumane. We don't need to fund more walls, more cops, more surveillance systems that cause even greater violence against people. For example, the prisons and walls that the EU is funding right now in Turkey that are keeping out Afghan migrants who are fleeing the Taliban. Well, even though the problems of global migration and inequality and the refugee crisis or the war in Afghanistan can seem so vast and tragic that we really feel helpless in the face of them, and that's certainly something I felt at times, having lived in these countries and reported on them. I do think there is a lot that we can do as individuals. And one of the things I was happy to talk about in this book was what people were doing. For example, the activists and volunteers that we met in Athens who had squatted a hotel and had brought people in off the streets and were providing them with a dignified, safe place to live that was also motivated by an egalitarian politics that believed in a better world, one that I frankly have trouble thinking we're going to realize tomorrow, but still the act of trying and of living together and of struggling made people's lives better on both sides. And so I do think that there's a lot that we can do as individuals. If we look around ourselves in our communities, there are refugees who are coming right now from places like Afghanistan or Ukraine, who could greatly benefit from our help, whether it's donations or just spending time with them. And that's something that I've been fortunate to be able to do here in my hometown of Halifax, Nova Scotia, where I currently am. And it is something that I think will help other people, but also ourselves. We'll learn a lot, and we will also, I think, feel a little less helpless and a little less despairing in the face of such a broken world.